Hello, welcome to Diminishing Returns. It is now October, the spookiest month of the year. Ooh. And we're doing quite a bit of horror stuff like we did last year. Not on purpose, just because there's a load of horror films coming out that we're tying our episodes into. The first of which is this new Halloween film that they've made. So we're doing Halloween, which might be weird because we have already done Halloween. But last time, Alan and I had only watched like the first 2 or 3, and it was kind of Calvin talking us through them. So what we've done is we've gone back and watched all of them. Not the remakes, but all the proper ones.
The original ones. Yeah, and so we're kind of eschewing the first film today and looking at the sequels. We're not going to deal with the third one either. Yeah. So we dealt with that 2 years ago. Still available on dimreturns.com.
Nice to have you listening, listener. My name's Sol. That other guy there is Alan, that you've been listening to.
That's me.
And instead of Calvin, in lieu of Calvin, this week we are joined by the...
John Wayne.
Scott.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to be funny and say Sam Hain, but I ended up saying John Wayne. So there was too much pressure on me.
Oh, God.
Well, my name was Scott Chambers. Long-time fan, first-time guest. And after watching all the Halloween sequels, I decided to change my name by default to Sam Hain. just to be a constant reminder never to watch these films ever again.
So we went to uni with Scott, that's how we know him. But part of me was just going to be like, we're joined by the writer of such BBC content as, and list some of his stuff. Because Scott's done, produced, like, written work. He's
well, that's...
I could have even introduced him as my writing partner, which would have sounded very, very snazzy.
bit of a stretch, that, to be honest, but I'm still flattered.
YouTuber Calvin Dyson.
Okay, so...
Halloween.
So we have already dealt with, in a previous episode, Halloween, 1978.
Yeah.
And we kind of touched on Halloween 2. Do you want to talk about Halloween 2 a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, should we very, very, very briefly touch on the first one again? We have already done it, but I rewatched it just to contextualize all these sequels that I'd never seen before. What did we say last time, Alan? I think we both said it was all right.
It's a sort of, it's all right, and it's sort of not a serial killer, a slasher film disguised as horror.
I mean, he is a serial killer.
Yeah,
you're not
that's
wrong.
That's not the film genre though. So it's a slasher film disguised as a horror. It's a slasher film.
What do you mean disguised as a horror?
Well,
it's a romantic comedy disguised as a romance.
But it's arbitrarily placed at Halloween for no reason whatsoever except marketing. So it's just a film where some babysitters get chased by someone with a knife, basically.
Is there more than one babysitter?
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, we were fairly positive about the first one, weren't we? I mean, Calvin's the real slasher fan. I'm not a fan of the genre. Alan's not a fan of horror in general. I'm hoping Scott, who's a horror fan, I'm hoping he'll be able to bring a positive voice to the franchise.
The first film I really hold in high regards. I mean, I watching it like recently has dated quite a bit, and it is regarded as the film that sort of created the slasher film. I mean, if you don't take into account like Black Christmas, which came out, a couple of years ago, before that,
and all the prototype ones that were kind of halfway
like
there,
Peeping Tom,
and Psycho and stuff.
Jinx.
Yeah, but it's very much the definitive. Oh, this is a thing now.
It brought it to the zeitgeist, at least, I reckon.
Yeah, like Night of the Living Dead with zombies, even though there were arguably very similar I Am Legend type things before.
Yeah, I think Halloween was the first horror film I'd watched as a kid, and it was such a little sort of segue into horror because it's not that extreme, but it's just got enough sort of weird, sort of subtle moments of horror that still sort of unnerve you, but don't really, make you wet the bed. So, I think the Halloween film still holds up well, and it holds up well because it's directed by John Carpenter, who.
Yeah. On the rewatch, that really struck me. I can't remember if we've discussed it on the show or not, but I I feel like I've been quite down on John Carpenter, despite him directing one of my all-time favourite films.
It's because he directs a lot of shit as well.
He has directed a lot of shit as well. So I feel like I've probably been quite down on him, but I mean, watching this and then the sequels, it's really apparent what he brings to the party, you know? I think the first Halloween is there's a lot of artistry behind it that you don't typically get in the slasher genre. There's a lot of really nice atmosphere. Yeah, it's surprisingly nicely shot. I was quite on board with it on the rewatch, but I kind of got bored towards the end. It just went on a bit too long. But like, all things considered, to say I really don't like the slasher genre, I think Halloween's a solid film, and, you know, taken on its own merits and as this kind of birth of a genre almost. Yeah, you know, it's definitely earned a place in the conversation when it comes to horror films. I'd see why it's held up there.
I think it suffers from creating the rules in a lot of sense, that when you do watch it now, you sort of, it feels like tired cliches, but they invented them cliches. And
yeah.
I think the problem with the Halloween franchise I've noticed since watching these films is that it establishes such a dark sort of, I wouldn't say po-faced tone, but it does establish it as being serious. I mean, you take the
compared to Freddy Krueger rapping with the Fat Boys, you don't get any of that.
Bitch. Like, if you watch the Friday the 13th films, at least they know they're kind of sleazy slasher films. Whereas the Halloween films, with the sequels, they knew it was a gift and a curse. They knew if they tried to emulate the sort of John Carpenter tone, that they'll never quite hold a candle to it. But at the same time, they knew that if they didn't try to take it any new direction, it's going to sort of turn out stale and like crap. And that's the problem with these sort of Halloween films. It's like, I kind of wish that they did just get a little bit fucking too stupid and silly.
Yeah. Because, I'd never watched any of these sequels before until very recently, going through them over the space of a week or two for this podcast. And by the end of it, I was just wishing we were doing something like Nightmare on Elm Street, something a bit more... I mean, I don't even like Nightmare on Elm Street either.
Yeah, that's shit as well. But we did Child's Play. At least there was lots to talk about there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when I told my girlfriend that I was going to be a guest on the podcast,
she said, "What podcast?
No.
What are you talking about? I've never heard of it.
Who are you? What are you doing in my house?"
I often tell that I've been listening to it. So I said, they've given me a list of films I can talk about, and I listed the films that you were going to talk about, like the Tarantino films, etc. And she said, what films did you pick? And I said, I'm doing the Halloween sequels, I said really excitedly. And she just looked at me and said, why? And then I was like, why have I picked them? And I thought it's because I'm still like, I'm a child living in a man's body still. And I thought I've only chosen out them films because I used to love them growing up. And I did. It's like I was like the kids from League of Gentlemen. You know, how many killings is in it? You know,
sin. Oh, I've not seen that.
Oh, I have. It's really good.
Is it? How many killings?
7.
No,
The way that he does it, he kills one by gluttony, one by greedy, sexy, ugly, sleepy, dopey and bashful. Wasn't that good?
I don't like that Bradley Pitts anyway.
No.
Too much acting.
And it was only when I started watching them that I thought, these are really, I don't know, really disappointing. So
one problem here is that for one reason or another, we were supposed to be recording last week and then we had to postpone, which means I watched all these films in preparation for last week. So now a week has gone by and I can't remember the differences between them. And they're all just sort of melded into one. So I'm hoping when we start talking about the details of them, it'll come back to me.
On the rewatch, the opening scene of the first film, you're seeing it from the perspective of the killer. It's very Black Christmas again. They're walking around the house with a knife and heavy breathing. And you see as they walk up to the victim and stab them. And then the big twist is you see, it was a little child doing it all along. It's quite a nice, effective little twist, I thought.
What did you what did you think of the way it just sort of, a lot of people don't get why he's just standing all frozen and his parents are just staring at them. What John Carpenter was trying to do there was create a thing, I can't remember the theatrical term, but on stage when a scene ends, sometimes they just freeze in the moment, and he was trying to bring that cinematically.
Oh, right.
And a lot of people don't realise that's what he's trying. It's supposed to be like a snapshot of that moment. But people always thought it was...
No, I didn't get that at all.
I didn't get that, but I always thought it was kind of weird and unsettling anyway.
I just thought that it was meant to be that the kid's kind of in this like catatonic state that he's gone into, and that's, you know, part of his mental illness.
And I don't think that was his intentions, but it's one of them sort of like, just by having a little bit more creativity and depth to it, as I added that sort of moment there to get people sort of talking.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with these sequels, is that they just haven't had any talented directors come on board.
Yeah. That I mean, that's basically my note, is just the talent isn't there. Because it, like I say, I came away from the first one with respect for it, even if I don't massively enjoy it myself. Like, it's all right. There's stuff in it that I really like, but I was really quite looking forward to the sequels, because I like when continuity becomes incredibly convoluted and films have to like dance all around it. But yeah, so this was the first time I'd ever watched Halloween 2. Alan, you'd watched it for when we did this last time, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
It just feels lame and sequely off the bat.
It's an immediate sequel. It starts where the first film ends and carries on like on that same night.
But it's the same. You get the sense that the director isn't a bad director, but it's just mediocre sort of. I mean, Halloween 2 is it's not terrible, and like I actually enjoyed the sequel more than the other sequels because it does feel like a direct sort of continuation straight on. I love how Dr. Sam Lewis goes out to the garden and he checks the grass to see if Michael, like he was left any residue or anything like that. And then
he's hiding under a blade.
And he's such an arse. Like I love Dr. Lewis, but the neighbour comes out and he says something like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, you know, he's obviously had gunshots, and he just turns to her and he goes, "You don't know what death is," and he just fucks off into a cop car. Like, I was just like, Michael Myers could literally be in that guy's house right now. Like, he just left this guy in a dressing gown, so he's in quite a vulnerable state. He just I don't know. I think it's a little bit more mean-spirited in its sort of depth. It's like they're trying to sort of up the ante. Like the bit where that kid gets hit by a car and he just explodes in a fiery ball. I just thought, Christ, you know, I don't know.
That was definitely a big change between the first and second film, like more gore and like just violence like that, which seems to be like they've missed the point of what made the first film work, that kind of creepy atmospheric stuff. But apparently that, like, John Carpenter was one of the writers, and like apparently it was him who was, you know, wanted to get more gore in there, even though he wasn't directing. He was involved.
What I do like about the sequel is the subtle sort of hints to his backstory, like him just writing Sam Hain on the board is kind of weird and creepy.
That's you, isn't it?
Yeah. And the sort of, I don't know, just... And I think it looks great in terms of, like, you know, I think most films shot in the 70s do, because they've got that natural aesthetic.
That's something I don't think I've ever really mentioned on here. There is something about, like, grimy... Oh no, I definitely mentioned it in the Black Christmas episode, thinking about it. There's something about that kind of grimy film stock from the 70s that I really love, that you get in these crappy old horror films that are just... I mean, this is from the 80s, but, you know...
Guys, you starting to sound a bit like Quentin Tarantino now. I'm getting worried.
There's something kind of dreamlike almost, just ethereal almost, like just not of this world, about this very particular low-grade film stock that old horror films used, and I think it creates a very specific atmosphere that's very conducive to horror. Films like intentionally trying to be, disorientating in some way or another, like Don't Look Now is one that comes to mind. So yeah, no, I agree with you there. There is a nice kind of dirty aesthetic to the whole thing that works, although I think on a technical level this was a big step down from the first one in terms of how it's shot and put together and the art design and all that sort of stuff. Some of my notes are on this topic, actually, reading them. For some reason I've made the note, even the pumpkins aren't as cool in this one.
Diminishing returns, I guess. So
yeah basically.
This is a film where they establish a bit more backstory, where that Michael is actually Laurie's brother.
Yeah.
Which is not in the first film, and so they have to kind of fudge the numbers a bit to make that work.
Oh god, see, I was worried I'd just like zoned out and missed it in the first film. It really kind of threw me when I was like, hang on, they're related? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was only put in the second film.
And that's just so lazy to reveal that he's, that she's just like, I mean, she's in bed for most of this film anyway. Like, just sort of dreaming about exposition. It's ridiculous. And I found that really jarring. And that was one of the things I marked it down for, really, was that sort of just terrible reveal. And
another crucial thing at the end is that they kill him. And shoot his eyeballs out, and then blow him up, which was supposed to be the end. That was like, right, we've done this story now, it's done, boom. And they didn't stop. Well, they decided to start making Halloween anthology films. Didn't work out. We discussed that.
Yeah. So we are going to skip the third one in this episode because we've already covered it with myself, Alan, and Calvin on our previous Halloween episode. Go and have a listen because I'm quite a big fan of the third one. I think it's hilarious. So we're just doing the Mike Myers saga, aren't we? The ones, because if you haven't seen them, the third one was nothing to do with the other films in terms of storyline continuity. They were going to try and make the franchise into an anthology, and then it did so badly that they just gave up on the idea. So it's just this bizarre anomaly within the franchise that doesn't make any sense. But no, I hated it. I've got our ratings from the previous Halloween episode. So just to refresh everyone's memory, all three of us gave the first Halloween a 7 out of 10 when we did that. And then Halloween 2, Alan and you'd seen it. Calvin had seen it. So what would you give it now, Alan? Is your rating the same as last time?
Yeah, it's a 4.
Yeah, and Calvin gave it a 7. I'm going to chuck a 3 out of 10 at it. I hate it.
Fair.
Scott, be a bit more positive, I guess.
I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to, because if I start off so low now, I'll be in minus before I get to fucking...
You got to give yourself somewhere to go.
I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10.
All right.
Just
what would you give the first one for context?
in the context of how sort of instrumental it has been to horror, I'll probably give it a good 9 out of 10. To be honest, I mean, as I said before,
I think that's fair. Yeah,
it's a product of its sort of time, and I mean. Yeah. I like how it sort of introduces the subtlety of implied supernatural. I thought that was pretty cool. It was like a mind-blowing idea,
This is what really annoyed me with the franchise in general, was that, like, I kept thinking, like, well, is it supernatural? Because it's not, and it doesn't make sense if it isn't. But then, is it? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, he is immortal. He definitely, can't kill him in the traditional ways.
Yeah.
He is vulnerable. He is sort of...
It's one of the big issues I have with the slasher genre, generally speaking, to be perfectly honest. I've spoken about this, I think, on the podcast, but certainly with Calvin, where he thinks slasher films are the best horror films because they're generally not supernatural killers. They're therefore scarier because they're believable that someone might try and stab you. Whereas I just always think, yeah, but I can fight back against a guy with a knife. And in these films, repeatedly, people fight back against him. And, sometimes they win. So I don't know, it just really, I find it hard to take it as being as scary as Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. That's scary, and that's just a guy with a yeah. So I guess it's just how it's done. But
I actually when I watched No Country for Old Men, the first time I watched that, then the night after, I actually had a nightmare he was stalking me.
I did,
and I've never had that before.
I had a nightmare where he was stalking me,
and that just goes to show how effective his character is. And I'm totally going off franchise, but one of the reasons I love the one of the last Friday the 13th films, I think it's Jason Goes to Hell, even though that film's a complete piece of garbage, is I like in the opening scene they just blow up Jason with a SWAT team and a grenade, and it was the most satisfying moment in cinematic history. It was just oh yeah, someone's actually decided that might be a plausible thing to do. Just yeah, and that's what I never sort of got with these sort of Halloween films is But the thing is, Michael Myers, he's quite sneaky in that sense, isn't he? He knows... Well, we can get to that when we get to the...
Stay in the shadows.
Yeah.
Very good at hiding for someone who's like 7 foot tall. How tall is he?
Depends from film to film.
Before we move on, I think we should start figuring out where, if we were the producers, where we'd put the number into the title if we were making these films. So for this one, I would do HA2 with Roman numerals. Ween.
Yeah, that's fine.
You on board
That's
with
good.
that? Moving on. Halloween 4.
So we've jumped forward, well, from the first film, 10 years. The story goes that Michael, who had his eyes shut out and blown up, didn't die at all, but he's been in a coma for 10 years.
Yeah.
Apparently he's healing himself because his eyes grow back. No one mentions it, but that happens. But he's not being tested on as a medical miracle. Also, who survived the suicidal sacrifice is Donald Pleasence with some minor burns.
I might as well get into it here. He's kind of a fan favourite actor, isn't he, Donald Pleasence?
Mm-hmm.
I like him. He's got presence.
He's the mask. I mean, he's the totem of the franchise, obviously.
Yeah, and like
not including Michael.
Maybe it was just fatigue with the franchise, but as it went on, it just really began to dawn on me that I hate him and I think he's dreadful. I can't stand him.
Do you mean the character or the actor?
Both.
I think that's unfair, to be honest. I think I think he's great, and I like the fact that he is this sort of he's getting more and more insane with each film. It's almost like he's aware he's a character in a film, and he just can't escape this hell that he's in. Like...
Well, that's it. It felt like it was an actor who couldn't get into the role to me watching him.
That's what
I mean. I don't know. I'm quite fond of Malcolm McDowell's take on the character in the remake, so maybe it's not the character, but I just... am I right in thinking he was, like, off his face drinking a lot when he was making all these? Is that what...
Yeah.
I think you brought that up on the last podcast. I think you mentioned
Yeah.
that.
Oh, well, I seem to remember that, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, the vast majority of actors are, so I don't know if I can judge it too harshly on that.
Well, I'm not judging him for it. I just, I'm trying to figure out if there's an excuse for what I saw as very bad acting throughout the film.
Well, I think it's not that Donald Pleasence is acting particularly badly here. It's just that he's acting in a completely different style to the rest of the film, which is very sort of soap opera actors. Low rent shit, where he's going like full on. Well, I'm a madman, so I'm going like massive googly eyes. I'm freaking out. Like he's committing to it.
But normally I'm on board with that. If it was Nicolas Cage, I would be all over it.
Do you think it's a sense of desperation, like knowing that he could be killed off any moment? That sort of bleeds into his acting. It's kind of like, I've got to go fucking 110% batshit crazy to be a fan favorite. I think originally Christopher Lee was going to play the part or something, and I don't think he would have played it as with the sort of vulnerability that sort of Donald Pleasence.
Yeah, I don't think Christopher Lee can do vulnerable.
No,
I just don't think he's got it in him.
He's too much. Well, he was too much of a machine. He's too sort of.
Yeah. Plus, if Dr. Loomis was like taller than Jason, not Jason.
Michael
if Dr. Loomis was taller than Mike Myers, I don't think it'd work as well. He wouldn't be as scary.
Mike Myers. Groovy,
Yeah,
baby. Yeah.
I was wondering. I should have set a timer. How long was that going to take until there was a Mike Myers reference?
I'm Dr. Loomis, Shrek.
How much do you think that? How much do you think that affects Mike Myers' life when he was growing up, like as a babysitter? Do you think, Mike Myers is coming over to babysit tonight?
Well, you think that was bad? I went to school with someone called Mike Myers, and so he had the killer and Austin Powers to contend.
I'll tell you, speaking of acting though, I'll tell you who is good in this film and the next one is the little girl who plays like the main little girl. Really great. She's screaming all over the place. She really shows fear. I think she does a really good job.
Comes across like a legitimately scared child. I agree. That's
yeah.
And you'd know, wouldn't you, Alan?
When I watch these films, I get kind of a nerve because she is kind of shit in a lot of scenes, but she looks like she's genuinely terrified.
That's it.
In the
That
third
is
act.
completely it.
And I'm like, what did they do to scare this kid?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's just like in Alien when Jones the cat is screeching. It's like, oh
Yeah.
God, he's scared at something.
I think it was fairly innocent what they actually did with the cat. I think they just held a dog up or something.
When this girl was scared of dogs.
well, was Harvey Weinstein producing him at that time?
Oh, God. So, the return of Michael Myers, the fourth one.
Yeah, and it's all just kind of pointless and boring.
Yeah.
Because you still have no motivation for Michael Myers, what he's doing, why he's doing it, who he is, if he's real or not. Is he a ghost?
I think this is going to be a controversial opinion, but for me, this one really felt like they were coming at it with renewed energy. Like, shit, right? We've got to we've got to relaunch this, get it up and running again. Myers is back. I don't know, it really felt like they'd put a bit of effort in that wasn't present in even the second one for me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on. At times when I was watching this film, there's some really cool moments, and it felt like I was watching a different film, and I wish there was just more of that sort of otherworldliness about it, you know.
Yeah, well, one of my main notes, I think, is similar to what you're saying there, but I've made the note that I really liked how this one was shot. I just thought the cinematography was so sort of frantic and visceral. There was some real kind of energy to like the visuals in it, and it did a lot to make me be more on board with it. It really felt like someone was surprisingly really trying to make a piece of art with this film, and that really, I just wasn't expecting it on the fourth one.
Don't think I got that from it.
You can tell like they're in capable hands, but I think it's just down to the script. Like that, some of the exposition in the opening scene. It's
I agree. Yeah.
Hey, you were my adopted sister, but I love you. Okay, and it's like,
well, you know, talking about exposition, what about that wonderfully subtle scene where the kids bully Jamie by shouting, "Jamie's an orphan! Jamie's an orphan!"
I love that scene so much. It was a nice bit of cinematic Schadenfreude. I don't know if I'm saying it, but I was laughing so hard at that scene.
Just to follow up on what's going on in the narrative, is this little girl, Jamie, she is the daughter of Laurie Strode, that's the Jamie Lee Curtis character, who is dead, apparently. Again, I'm not sure the dates quite add up properly, but that means she's the niece of Michael Myers, and that's why Michael Myers is telepathically connected to her in some way.
Yeah,
Right?
that's something
That's
they kind
right,
of
yeah?
vaguely... Yeah, it never really makes any sense, but
It's implied in the fourth film at least. I thought, what's the logic here? She's having nightmares or she's seeing him.
yeah.
What is up with the mask? Because it's like it's supposed to be the return of Michael Myers, and the mask is awful. But a lot of the fans hated this mask, and I know that it's actually quite a common subject amongst the fans of the Halloween community. Is the mask.
I did think it looked shit, but I just assumed it had always looked shit, and I hadn't had a proper look at it yet. But
Right.
no, I did find it really distracting in this film. It looks almost like he looks almost like a silent clown from the 20s, doing
like a broken,
like a Laurel and Hardy
Yeah.
comedian. It just doesn't look right. There's something a
Yeah,
bit
and
too
it's-
like rosy cheeked about the whole. Not rosy cheeked, but like
It looks too innocent in a way. It just looks like expressionless. Whereas like with the original mask, and obviously when they've done it a little bit better in the sequels, is that the whole point of him being the shape is that they've obviously picked a mask, you know, intentionally or not in the first film, that they could bounce the light off it and, you know, create different looks with it. And with this, it's just kind of like he sticks out like a sore thumb.
That's it. He's so blank and clearly defined, just a white face. That's a really good point, actually. In the earlier films, you never do really get quite as good a look at the face as you do here, and I think that's because they were really playing with like shading and stuff. But yeah, well, I made two notes. I'll rattle off a positive. I really like that he just attacks that kid, Jamie. I've put it's like surprisingly brutal that they're willing to just have him attack a kid. She obviously won't be harmed, but like I'm still, you know, think that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So that's your positive note.
That's my positive.
Attacking
Yeah.
children.
My next note is what does Michael Myers have in common with this film? he starts off pretty well, but then he just sort of turns to shit and just keeps going and going and going relentlessly, and he won't stop. And everyone's trying to stop him, but it just keeps going, and
it never ends. I was going to say no good dialogue, to be honest. But...
Let me give you one of my positive notes. Oh, I haven't got any. Never mind.
Well, I've got one more, but it's to do with the very final moment, so I'm saving it till the end.
Do you mean the desperate attempt at a twist ending to give it
Yes.
some sense of that anything's happened here?
Yeah, so spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it. That's your warning.
Spoilers for anyone who has seen it up until the last 30 seconds, because it doesn't have any... You don't see it coming at all. There's no reason for it.
The final moments of the film are Jamie, the little kid, who's sort of the hero of the film, really, the protagonist, basically recreates the opening moments from the first film where a little kid kills everyone, and Dr. Loomis runs in and sees that she's, like, murdered some of the other characters and sort of cries out, and he takes out a gun ready to shoot her because he recognises, oh god, it's happening again. It's another Mike Myers. It's the exact same thing. She's just kind of snapped and she's going to become a Mike Myers again. And then someone comes in and stops him shooting her because she's a kid. But now, as a standalone sequence and idea, I love it.
It's great. It is, and I totally forgot about that ending. You know, it's great.
In the context of this film, where there's no setup, like really, or it's awful. It just doesn't make any sense. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it's so annoying because if they'd just gone back and like rewritten the script a little bit, added in a few scenes, that could have been such a great ending to this film. And I think part of the problem is I don't think there's ever any like established stuff that suggests that Mike Myers was a normal kid and then just one day became evil and killed people. I think the idea is he was always weird and never spoke and stuff. So, you know, that's the sort of thing. If they'd gone back and had Dr. Loomis go, oh, well, you never know, Mike Myers was a perfectly normal, lovely child until the age of 4, and then he, you know... It just a bit of reworking it could have made it work.
Well, even in the moments where like she's got like, the ending isn't that jarring for me, because in that final act where she is acting quite well, when she is really, you know, terrified, you could sort of, you know, it doesn't stretch the bounds of plausibility that she has been traumatized by it, because she's still a child at the end of the day. And I thought, if they would have just peppered it with more moments where she's a little bit more like, even a slight hint of, you know, being catonic, and just sort of, I don't know, if they just made her a little bit off kilter.
Well, I think the idea is just she's got a psychic connection to Mike Myers because they're related, and he's like almost possessed her.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it's bullshit and doesn't work. If it had been, oh, there's something running in the family here, and we're gonna have some hints at this to come, then it might have worked. And it's a shame because I think it's genuinely a scary concept. It's quite a haunting idea that this lovely little kid could just turn around and kill people, and then what do you do? Like, if you know the writings on the wall is she's going to grow up to become this almost supernatural murderer and have more Halloween sequels with her as the villain, then maybe you should kill her. It's that whole...
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so weird about these sequels, is I remember from just like the VHS art, like I remember not seeing Halloween 4 until I was a little bit, I don't know, I think I was a little bit older, and then I think they sort of bypassed me the fourth and the fifth ones. Is that on the marketing, on the posters, like she features quite heavily with the knife and stuff, that there was always sort of implying that she was going to sort of carry the torch over and be the new sort of killer.
That was the other thing that really annoyed me. Like I mentioned earlier that I love it when franchises start to get incredibly convoluted with continuity and so on. I was really looking forward to a Halloween 5 with that little girl as the killer. Like, grown up, I was expecting. But I thought, oh, is that what happens? Does she don the mask in the fifth one? I wasn't expecting that. And obviously, no, they don't do it because they don't have the balls to make something interesting.
No.
But
you can blame the fans for that.
Yeah, it was such a letdown that they didn't do it.
I think Halloween 4 is, in terms of a sequel to bring the franchise back, I don't think it's I don't know, it's not great, but I can see that you can tell it's been sort of made by money men in that sense. That like a lot like Halloween 2 is like they knew that they kind of messed up and disappointed a lot of people with the third film.
I mean, you know what? I think as a course correction for the series, as a getting the franchise back on track, I think it is actually quite a good job. Personally, I think it's better than the second film. On that note, I give this one a 4 out of 10.
Well, I was not as positive as you. I gave it a 3 out of 10.
I mean, 4 out of 10 is still quite damning, so it's... yeah.
I would give it a 4 out of 10 as well, just for effort more than anything.
So with this one, I'm going to go H for Halloween for the poster. What do you reckon?
I go Halloween, he's alive with the IV in alive.
So the fifth one, yeah, I mean, all the goodwill they kind of got from me from that fourth one, straight down the toilet. My first note is just, this is really badly made so far. It's incoherently shot and edited, and I'm struggling to follow what's even supposed to be happening.
Well, let me just tell you a little thing about when I was watching this. I was illegally streaming it from a dodgy website. For whatever reason, it was a glitch, so it would buffer, basically, every 1 minute and 52 seconds, and I had to kind of refresh the page. Now, that means...
You had to refresh the page 60 times or so?
Every 2 minutes, I had to consciously make a decision to continue watching this film. I just imagine the mental strength that is required to do that, and worship me, because I did it, and I got through it.
I've made the note, I'm already bored, followed by they've trapped themselves in convoluted mythology really quickly. This is the first film where it really feels like it's struggling under the weight of its own continuity. Like, it just because it doesn't want to commit to going with it, that's why. It's because they want to kind of undo it all.
So plot-wise, this is supposed to be set a year later, it's Halloween again. The little girl... and then it's not immediate clear, like, oh, okay, so should she kill them, foster mother, or did she not? Was that a dream? Because she's in some sort of home, she doesn't speak, she's traumatized.
But she's nothing like the character from the previous film anymore. She is just like a different character now.
And she's mute from the trauma. But seems to have been genuinely accepted by all and sundry and the medical staff there that she was psychologically possessed by Michael Myers, and that's why she stabbed her mother. They're all happy with that explanation.
I've made a note. What the fuck is up with Donald Pleasance in this one? Is he off his fucking tits? He can barely walk.
He probably is. He's probably on painkillers. Like, he's probably had a lot of injuries running about. Like,
I don't remember this. I've made the note. What's up with that CBBC music when the police duo?
Oh
appear?
shit!
Oh my god! I thought I fucking imagined it. I had to rewind it and watch it again.
All clear.
Nothing above, nothing below.
What about Max?
Adobe, right?
This is not happening to me. Max! Max, what have you done? I'm so embarrassed.
It's what we're here for.
Rescue cats.
Find dogs.
That's a job.
And we love it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is going on here?
And it doesn't even set them up. It's like they're supposed to be like these bumbling Abbott and Costello type cops.
To me, to you.
I don't know. I actually preferred Halloween 5 to Halloween 4 because it does go into the realms of absurdity and like just sort of just stupidness. And it made it more entertaining to watch. At least I thought, well, they're doing something different. They're not doing it well, but they're doing it different.
I did think genuinely the fourth film was quite well made. Just a bad script that had been quite well made. Whereas this one feels like it's thrown together by like complete amateurs. My notes are just like, it's hard to believe it's a studio production in an established franchise. It feels like some really low level stuff that should have been thrown together with no money at all. Maybe developing a cult following, like Black Christmas, something like that. It's just baffling that this is, like I say, a studio product. And also Donald Pleasance is awful in this one. Like, I've made the note that he's one of the worst actors in the film, and that's saying something.
There is a bit right at the beginning where we see sort of the end of the previous film again, where the police shoot the shit out of Michael Myers. He falls into some sort of abandoned mine shaft. And then, as per standard police procedure, they throw some dynamite in there to
that's
kill
what
him.
I would have done. They didn't even check on his body, did they? I mean, it doesn't make
some dynamite.
It's just, I mean, obviously for the sense of the sequels, but like, what really annoys me about horror films these days, it's such a tired cliche, is that when we see the killer's sort of lair, and I think he has one in this film, that it's got that typical boring... I don't want to call it boring as a disservice to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because they sort of invented, the weird Bones, Ed Gein style aesthetic, and they've just lazily done it with Michael Myers here, where he's like a weird couple of some candles in the background, and he's got this underground...
Everything's made out of skin.
Yeah, rustic.
Naughty, I am a naughty man, I'm sitting in my naughty room, and I'm cutting some bits of human skin to make into a big cocoon. It's a clue for the cops, and I'm pulling out the stops, because I am a complicated loon. Look at the jars, look at the jars, look at the things inside the jars. I put some fingers there, some hair and several winkies. Look at the walls, totally covered in crazy scrolls. And from time to time I add a couple of stinkies. I love the smell and the gloom of my crazy naughty room. Come on over for some nibbles and some drinkies.
And it's lazy, I think. And it was just kind of like, I don't know.
Well, you see him crawling away, and he gets away where at the end of the film we thought he was dead, but actually he's got away. And he goes and sort of finds this place, and there's a guy living there, like this hermit guy, who sort of takes him in. And I was like, oh, they're going to do some sort of Frankenstein thing where Frankenstein meets the old blind man, and they become friends. I thought they were going to do some of that, but then it's just nothing at all. It's like, oh, but that's where he was for a year in a coma. Oh, he's back. It was like not used at all. And that's just pretty symptomatic of the kind of crap writing.
Yeah, just putting red X's on his calendar. Just doing What did you think about that scene in the barn where it was just like there was like 5 fake, is it called a cat scare? When there's just like just a fake.
God, yeah.
There's like several of them, and I found it
where someone off camera just throws a cat at the actor.
Yeah, and it's like there's like 10. I mean, overall in this franchise, there must be about 20 times where someone is pretending to be Michael Myers, and they're just like, "Oh, yeah, it's okay, baby, I'm just fooling around," that sort of crap. And it's just like,
and the police are about to shoot him, thinking it's like, whoa, it's a prank, bro.
Why would you risk that? Like, and it's like there's quite a gratuitous sex scene, which just sort of feels like how it's out the Friday the 13th films. Like, I mean, I'm not against it, but it's just sort of, well, I am against it. There's no point for it. You can tell it's a product of the 80s slashers. Why focus so much on these characters? If you, at least with the Friday the 13th films, you kind of focus on them because they're kind of obnoxious, and there's going to be like an inventive kill, like you're going to see some great practical effects.
That was something really missing from these sequels for me, because they get so shit, and at this point you're like, all right, it is just derivative bullshit. So I kept thinking like, well, maybe there'll just be some fun nonsense and like some silly kills, but they're too serious to ever get to that point.
That's what I mean.
They don't. Yeah.
That's what I was saying about how like it's a gift and a curse. How like they've had such a great platform of the first film, but they feel like if they ever take it into a too silly of a direction, it's not going to be a Halloween film. And
like Mike Myers in space, or Freddy versus Myers, like any of these things, I was like gagging for something stupid like that to come along, and it just never did.
Yeah, I mean, like with these films, they're not even that violent, to be honest. I was like, I mean, like
not by slasher film standards, certainly.
No, like I mean, there's some moments where it is a bit sort of like like the scene in Halloween 2 where he drowns her in that boiling hot bath. But I thought, oh, hang on, maybe the sequels they will up the ante each film. It'll get more and more sort of ridiculous, but at least when these moments happen, they'll be it'll be entertaining. Yeah, it's shit.
I mean, worst one for me so far. Like I say, this was the first one where it just felt devoid of artistry and badly made by amateurs, and I think that was a big, like, incomprehensibly edited, shot, just shit. Just really shit on every level. Like, at least the other ones kind of had some nice shots in them, or some nice music or something, but none of that here. Awful.
What did you think about the whiplash moment, the bit where he takes off his mask and he was some kind of single tear guy, tries to get an emotional connection with him. That's the worst moment in sort of the whole franchise. He takes off his mask, you see this close-up of his eye, and you just see this single tear just rolling down his face. And I was just laughing so hard. I was just like, that is awful. Like, why would they try to even, like... I think they're trying to have this sort of weird sort of, like he is still sort of human underneath. Maybe they had plans for the sequels to sort of...
Yeah, and it's like, if he is human, then he's awful and I hate him, kill him. Like, it's...
Yeah.
like, that's only going to make me like him less if you humanise him. Has there ever been a film that's had a character cry a single tear and it hasn't been embarrassing for everyone involved? Because I genuinely can't think of it being, like, good.
Yeah, it was just so melodramatic. It was just kind of like, I don't know, awful.
There's a film called Crybaby in which Johnny Depp, that's his thing. He lets loose one single tear. Like that's the thing that he does. That's his character trait.
Is it really? That's why it's called Crybaby. I thought it was a bit deeper than that. I didn't realise it's because he does actually cry.
That's bizarre.
But that's a John Waters film, so it's.
But if he does that
it's
repeatedly
kind of
throughout the film,
it's
add up to a lot of crying.
It's deliberately ridiculous.
Maybe he's got like conjunctivitis or something.
Anyway, yeah, I give this one a 3 out of 10, and that's a very generous 3.
Yeah, well, I gave it a 2.
That's fair.
I don't know, for entertainment value, where I was more entertained watching this one because it was so awful, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10. But for actual quality of a film, I'd give it a 2 out of 10. It's garbage.
And for this one, I'm going to say, in the trailer, it comes up as Halloween, but then the N, like a mirror image of the N appears, and then that, like, rotates around till it looks like a 5.
I think it's just Halloween, and then, like, a hand splats against the screen. and then scrolls down in blood, and there's 5 marks.
Should turn that into a turd instead of blood splat, and you've got me on board.
So the curse of Michael Myers. One of my earliest notes is the neighbour character is the best thing, but, like, could they not afford Thomas F. Wilson?
I thought it was him. I thought, it's Biff.
Well, my next note after that was, now he's put on a suit and he's called John. What, was John Goodman too expensive? Like, but then obviously John Goodman was too expensive, so I mean it doesn't work, does it? Obviously they couldn't afford him.
Well, there's weird little acting moments in this because they've clearly got better actors. The writing hasn't got much better, but like they seem to be a little bit.
Well, my next note is Paul Rudd.
Oh yeah,
and really I should have like thought up someone that Paul Rudd's similar to and gone like, Paul Rudd. What, was Owen Wilson too expensive? But I don't know who's similar to Paul Rudd.
Isn't it Paul Anthony Rudd introducing him?
No, it's Ant-Man.
Imagine introducing Paul Ant-Man Rudd. Like, you must have dropped it when people were saying, "Oh, was you in Halloween 6?" Like, no, that was Paul Anthony Rudd.
I've done it down. Sorry, I'm just reading through my notes and I've written further down. Paul Rudd. Couldn't they afford Ben Stiller? I've made a note in capitals at the end here, just all caps. Paul Stephen Rudd. So I think it might be Paul Stephen Rudd.
Where did I get Anthony from? I'm sorry. Yeah, it might be Paul Stephen. I'll be honest with you. Like I kind of just sort of drifted off with this one. I don't think I fell asleep. I think I just zoned out. And my heart genuinely broke when I saw Donald Pleasant like just show up really old, and especially when he died making this film. It made me feel really sad. And
have you seen The Wicker Tree, the sequel to The Wicker Man? There's a scene where they got Christopher Lee back, and I mean that is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. He's on like really bad green screen because he obviously couldn't like leave his house.
Right? Yeah.
He's that frail, and it's just because it's not a great film. Oh my god, it's just depressing. It's like, oh man, there he is. He's not got long left, and he's in this film. So
you know what he hasn't got? Burns on his face anymore.
That's aloe vera for you, isn't it?
He just thought, I can't be bothered with all this makeup bullshit.
Well, if they can't be asked to explain how he survived an explosion, a heart attack, and it's like...
if Mike Myers' eyes can grow back, I'm sure his skin can heal. Then my last note's just appalling.
Yeah, I mean, my notes are similarly vague, and they're just sort of, soap opera acting, soap opera writing, really bad writing, dialogue-wise.
Yeah, soap opera is
they
very
set up
accurate, actually. That's Paul Rudd feels like he was, should have been in a soap. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just... The whole thing's just a lot of shit. This whole film. Oh, and then we haven't even talked about all the weird stuff with
the thorn, the druid. That always baffled me as a kid.
Some sort of cult.
I just zoned out. I didn't even take any of the druid shit in.
I mean, I literally, there's nothing in my notes about that, so I just let that one go. But there's some sort of cult that are breeding evil.
You can tell that this one's bad. This one's really bad. Even Calvin gave this a 3 out of 10 when we did it. It fails on every level. It's appalling. Hated it. This came out the year before Scream did, which really... So, just missed out on that wave.
Well, I was going to mention that when we come to the next film.
Yeah. So before that, I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 10. It's awful.
Very generous. I gave it a 1.
I think that's fair, yeah.
I'd give it a 1 out of 10 as well.
Yeah. And the worst thing is I can't even find a good place to put the 6 in the title. I'm gonna have to go with HALLO6EN or something, but it doesn't really work.
What if it says Halloween and then a big arse comes into frame and a turd comes out and it falls into the shape of a 6?
Just 6 turds fall out and it counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But yeah, I mean, so Scream came out the following year. The slasher genre had a real revival, and the fallout of that is that Halloween got another sequel, and this time it had a bit of money to play with. So Halloween H2O came out. It's a fan favourite.
It's called H2O. It's a clever double meaning because obviously it's Halloween 20 years later, but also it's entirely set on water. So the H2O is... Oh, wait, it's not. The H2O means absolutely nothing. It's a stupid fucking title.
It's called Halloween H20, sorry. But I mean, I was well aware of this film because I lived with Calvin Dyson for a few years, and my God, he never shut up about fucking Halloween H2O, this, and Steve Miner, one of the best horror directors out there, that, and Jamie Lee Curtis coming back in later life and having a career revival. Oh my God. So
do you know why I think he loves it so much? Can I just guess before you're probably going to tell me the answer? Is it because Jamie Lee Curtis's mum shows up and there's a slight the score of Psycho shows up for 2 seconds?
Calvin does love a sort of strong, perhaps even slightly masculine middle-aged woman who really knows how to take charge. So that's why he likes it.
Yeah, Calvin gave this one an 8 out of 10 when we did Halloween a few years ago, which is the highest rating he gave to any film in the series.
What
more than the first one. So I knew this one. My point is, I'm not just saying this to take shots at Calvin. My point is, this is a highly regarded film amongst Halloween fans, and so I knew that going in. I was excited to watch it. And yeah, within the first few minutes, it's oh, this is going to be a hell of a lot more fun and easy to watch because there's a bit of money behind it. The direction is suddenly competent again. This film's competent in a way that the last two weren't. And there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so we're already off to a good start.
In his hockey gear.
And introducing, I believe, is his credit.
This one's, they rebooted it again, though, not again, but this is the first time where they've decided to just ignore the continuity of the previous films.
That really pissed me off, honestly. It really annoyed me. It's I don't know, it's just... I hate when things kind of go, well, this one counts, but this one doesn't, this one doesn't, this one does. We're going to kind of reference half the plot of that one, so fans will be like, oh yeah, cool, but it doesn't quite add up anymore. I hate that. It really aggravates me, and it seems to be becoming increasingly more common in filmmaking. But so what this one kind of, it takes continuity from the first two, is that right? The first...
Yeah,
and then
just
ignores 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And it's not like
Exactly.
it ignores them. It kind of...
Don't
Because
ask, don't
ignoring
tell.
them and just like doing its own thing, I'm fine with. It's when it kind of retroactively undoes those other films, it winds me up.
Well, it kind of implies that it does it, because it's like if it was just the fact that she's just been in hiding, it's they actually make reference to the fact that she has faked her own death or something like
That's
that.
true, yeah. And it's that car crash that syncs up with the story from the other... Yeah.
Well, apparently in the original script, I think Kevin Williamson from the Scream franchise, I don't think his story, his idea anyway, was that there was going to be some scene where...
Did he write this as well?
No, I think he must have developed a script, but they kind of rewrote it. I think going from Wikipedia, which isn't the most reliable source, but apparently there was going to be a scene where Jamie Lee Curtis hears about Jamie dying, and she throws up in the toilet. But I think if he was to sort of imply that she just gave up on her daughter for whatever reason, that the audience might not warm to her. Like, I mean, obviously a lot of people can understand if she's like, "Oh, I gave the kid up for adoption, so she'd be safe," or something, and they kind of explored that. But I think the weight of these sequels would be too much for the story that it was. I think it's for the best that they just retconned it with the fact that they don't count, because it got so, as you say, convoluted.
But in a post-Scream world, this film shows no sense of self-awareness.
I was
or
expecting some
nature.
wit, some clever self-awareness and sassy dialogue. Maybe I was expecting something about the script. All I can say is that it's more competent than the previous ones, but it's not much else really.
I think what it's taken from the Scream films is that it's taken a sense of actual slickness and peril in the sort of... I don't know.
I think it's taken an increased budget. Honestly, that's all.
Yeah, I mean,
but it is. It's just teenagers running around. That's what the film is.
But the set pieces are a little bit more. Yeah.
We still don't have any motivation for the killer or any reason or rhyme to what he's doing. So
we do have a
matter.
strong motivation for the protagonist. Like, it's slightly more than just don't get killed. I suppose it's got that in its favour. It's don't get killed, but now it's personal.
Yeah, I mean it's with the it's almost like Scream without the whole meta like self-awareness, but
well, yeah, that's I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's Scream without any of the clever bits.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's basically I Know What You Did Last Summer, but with Michael Myers as the killer, and you've got that nostalgic sort of sense to it, and it's like it's good to sort of see him be used in a good way. I mean, in the sequels, he's just so generic. He's still kind of like a bland sort of generic sort of character anyway.
Well, I've made the note that he is here again. Like my note here is that he's way less imposing. He seems less big in this film than he's ever been before. He just comes across like someone dressed up like a scarecrow or something.
Well, what's interesting about I think the characters of Michael Myers is Dr. Loomis was going on about his eyes, but when you see his eyes, they just look like human eyes. Yeah. Like, it would have been so much more interesting if they did do something more interesting with that, as in like something a little bit off, unhuman. I don't know, because they're always going on about I looked into his eyes and I saw nothing but pure evil. It's like when you do see him human, it's kind of like, well, what did you really see? Which was so sort of dark. It would have been nice if they would have had that sort of, I don't know, supernatural sort of edge where... I'm not saying contact lenses, because that'd be naff, but I'm trying to think of a way they could have done it.
Just lighting it in a way that makes it a bit,
Or never seeing them. That's what was so great about the first film, is that,
it's basically some sort of high school... Well, some sort of weird boarding school kind of nonsense. Jamie Lee Curtis, but her son is one of the kids, so that means she's personally involved.
Yeah, and then that's how you get your sexy teens in there.
Yeah, they contrive a reason that everyone has left except them and LL Cool J, and Michael turns up, and they run around for a bit. That's about it, really.
And then she fights back and beats him.
Yeah.
Thus rendering him not even slightly scary, surely, unless you're Calvin.
I mean, it's kind of satisfying that she just chops his fucking head off.
I agree, actually. It is quite cathartic, and her fighting back is quite fun, but I feel like it completely defangs the franchise in a way
Yeah.
that it wasn't intended.
The whole thing is just nonsense because, first of all, you see him being zipped up in a body bag, which obviously the paramedics didn't bother taking his mask off at any point. And also, they presumably checked that he was dead and that, he's definitely dead.
No.
So there's
Waste
no
of
way he
time.
can wake up in the back
Waste
of the
of
van.
time. There's no way someone could have survived that.
And then she steals his body and goes away by taking a policeman's gun out of the holster and then just going, right, I'm taking this ambulance. Is it that easy to take a policeman's gun and then they don't even bother following you in the police car?
I think they were following.
Is that what happens?
They were following. They catch up with her towards the end. You hear the sirens coming. I think they are following her. She just gets a good bit of distance on him. Yeah, it is utter nonsense. And
then, obviously, superhuman strength does run in the family because she swipes his head off with a single blow of a blunt axe that she's found. So
clean shot. I've made a note
Fantastic
here.
skills.
I've made a note here. I'm fine. The bullets just grazed me. Can you remind me what that's about?
I can't, I'm afraid, no.
Oh god, no, it's the
Someone got
boyfriend, it's the
shot.
boyfriend! There's like a boyfriend character who gets shot, and then he comes back later and he says, I'm fine, the bullets just grazed me.
That happens a lot in films.
Bullets, my only weakness.
Then there's a moment where we were complaining about the single tear earlier on in one of the previous films. What about the moment where he fucking reaches his arm out towards her, like longingly? She reaches her hand out to him. What's that?
There's supposed to be some sort of emotional connection, but even though they're brother and sister, they were never raised together or anything. It's not like...
Because when you watch it, you just think, oh, don't, he's going to grab you and kill you. You don't think, oh, they're having a human moment. You think, it's a trick, kill him.
Yeah, everyone's thinking, don't be so fucking stupid. And you think, when I first watched that film as a kid, my idea was like, well, he's Michael Myers. He's going to get out of this and he's going to kill her. And I thought, oh, they're probably going to kill Jamie Lee Curtis off in this moment. The fact that she actually chops his head off, it's kind of like, one, it's brave for the sense like, why bring back a franchise back if they're just going to kill him in the first film?
Yeah.
Or the first film back after so long, after 20 years.
Well, they had already planned how they were going to get out of it, hadn't they? I believe they shot the scenes at the start of the next film that kind of undo all of this at the same time as filming this, so that they kind of had... Yeah.
I never got that sense, though, when I watched it. I always thought that they just sort of... In that sense,
Well, I bet they made
clever.
it... Yeah, I bet they made it as a definitive ending, in case they never got to make any more. But they'd left the door open to make more if they wanted to. Because, like I say, I think they shot all that stuff to get them out of it.
I mean, that is actually quite clever, but if you're
It's
going
not
to
as
create...
seamless,
Yeah,
is it?
because the way they get out of it in the next film does feel like a
Bullshit.
retro con, like how the fuck did they get out of this?
Yeah.
So if they actually
okay.
planned that, it makes it a bit less acceptable.
How come no one can smell weed in these films?
Why? When are they smoking weed? I can't remember.
Repeatedly, like in the first film, I think, and the second film possibly, and then in this one, there's loads of scenes where like the teens are smoking a joint, and so, like a parent comes in, or they're about to see a parent, and they're like, quick, and they put it out and like open the window, and the parent walks in. It's like,
oh no, yeah, I did notice that when they were.
Oh hey kids, how you doing? It's like even if
they were smoking. I didn't think they were smoking a jazz cigarette.
Well, even
I thought they were
tobacco's
just smoking.
fucking pungent.
Yeah, but exactly. Yeah, they're not
tobacco's
even
more
smoking out of the
fucking-
window, are they? They're just smoking in the room, and then like, oh, I'll just waft my hand in front of my face. That'll be fine.
Yeah, one of the most like permeating, pungent, horrible smells. You can tell when people have been smoking somewhere, especially like seconds later.
I love that.
Oh man. Anything else to add to this one, or final
I
thoughts?
think it's fine. I think it's fine for what it is. I mean, in the sort of Scream generation, it's a notable entry, I guess, and it's flashy enough.
It's a huge step up from what the franchise have been doing, but I think it's also a massively wasted opportunity. Like, they could have made something interesting here potentially, and it isn't.
This is why I'm a little bit sort of. I love the trailer for the new Halloween film. You know, the one with the new one's coming out, but it's basically Halloween 40 years later.
Yeah,
and I can't help but feel like this feels like it's going to be a remake of Halloween H2O, pretty much in a way.
Yeah.
And like I think it's probably going to turn out kind of terrible. Because now that I've watched all these, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do Halloween.
Got good reviews, the new one. Not to completely jump ahead of ourselves. Like, it is meant to be good. I wouldn't be remotely surprised if the new one ends up being my favourite in the entire series, frankly. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I decided I'll talk about the Halloween sequels, is because I was so excited to see the new one. But the more I was watching the sequels, I was thinking they're probably just going to fall into the same traps as these sequels, because there's no way they can really interestingly take this character. And I think they should just sort of either have these sort of little Halloween sort of anniversary films, like every 10 years, 20 years, and maybe I'll be kind of interested, but it's I
was kind of expecting this to be my favourite of the sequels based on what I'd heard. And it's not even that. But, I mean, it's one of the better ones, but that really isn't saying a lot. I give it 4 out of 10. I
mean, I still thought it was total shit. I gave it 2 out of 10. The fact that it was trying harder and failing does not excuse the fact that it failed.
I think I'd be a little bit more generous and give it... I mean, as a product of its time and the fact that it is completely watchable, I'd give it a 6 out of 10, to be honest.
Got ourselves a Calvin over here.
But it obviously did well enough to keep the ball rolling.
I mean, it is highly regarded as one of the best ones, and I've always been baffled when I watch H2O.
I honestly think it's an increased budget and a few actors you recognise. Yeah. But that led not very quickly, but relatively quickly to Halloween 8? Halloween Resurrection.
You haven't told us what you would do for Halloween H2O.
Alright, I would do the second L in the trailer, like flips upside down, spins round, so it looks like a 7. And then that's how it appears on the poster, like Howl 7 Oween.
Okay. So Halloween Resurrection. Now this is what I expect from a post-Scream reboot meta take on it. Now that's not to say it's good, but it at least feels like it's trying to do something a little bit different and change the nature of it.
People hate this one, and I think it's generally regarded as one of the worst of the entire run. I think this might be my favourite of the sequels.
I think I'd probably say the same. It's not by much, but...
It's not a good film at all.
It's not a high bar.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's a very low bar. But this one has an interesting premise that's not just Mike Myers shows up and kills people.
Mm-hmm.
It has a sense of humour about what it's doing. Like, it's got its tongue-in-cheek very firmly in a lot of scenes. It's kind of playing with people being killed and characters not realize. There is a sense of irony to the whole thing. You've got Busta Rhymes in there, just going pure comedy performance. Not necessarily good comedy performance, but again, I don't know, it works. This is what I kind of expected from all of these films, and it's the only one that delivers anything like a fun, silly sequel with, slasher nonsense. That's kind of what I'm here for. And I mean, there's a scene early on where Mike Myers just walks straight through a door chasing someone, and it's fucking hilarious.
I feel bad for not properly watching this film now. I think I was cooking scrambled egg on toast when it was on. I was so like Halloween fatigue kicked in at the 4th film. So I don't know if he was watching the same film. I really thought it was just I hated Busta Rhymes in this film. And it was like I could tell it was like. Well, it's always been a common thing in the late 90s.
You know what it was? The bit that I loved is it Busta Rhymes has the mask on and he's pretending to be Michael Myers before they know Mike Myers is actually there, and there's like a really extended scene when he runs into Mike Myers and he's just like berating him.
Oh shit, man! Charlie, where the fuck you been at, man? Don't you know we've been looking all over this motherfucker for you? And why the hell you dressed like me anyway? I ain't paying you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers. If them kids come around and see us dressed up in the same shit, you're gonna ruin the whole effect. Ah, damn it. The hell is wrong with you? I said, what you looking at me like that for? Huh? You don't get it? You don't get it? Your shit ain't working up there or something? You need to take your ass in the back of the garage with Nora. That's your job. Go back there with Nora and help her ass out. Go do your job. I left the back door unlocked for your ass to go out the back into the garage. That's what I did. You need to get the hell out of here. Go ahead, scoot, skedaddle. Get the fuck out of Dodge. God damn. What the hell somebody gotta do to get a little decent help up in this motherfucker?
Oh, honestly, it is.
It's part of that legacy of just having hip-hop stars in horror films, which I fucking hate.
I know,
I'm not
it's
doing
awful,
anything
isn't it?
interesting with it. It's like Leprechaun in the Hood. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm probably sounding racist by just connecting them dots there.
No, it's a thing.
See, I haven't got a problem with Busta Rhymes. I think he's
one
brings
of the best.
A lot of character to
Yeah,
this
I think he's one of the
thing.
best.
So at least he's got... All the rest of the actors are just bland, shitty actors.
Oh
so
yeah,
at
he
least
stands
he's-
out, but he's just, you can tell he's obviously thinking it's his big break, because I've not seen him in any other films. And he's got some level of sort of charisma to him, I guess. But the fact that they turn him into this sort of like I don't know, he doesn't even have any vulnerabilities. Like he karate kicks him into some sort of like. It's
I love that.
Who would kill Michael Myers like Busta Rhymes? Busta Rhymes would be the guy.
I loved it.
We'll have 50 Cent get shot by Freddy Krueger.
Oh man,
yeah. I really hated the reality TV aspects to it. Like I know that was the big thing back then, the found footage.
Well, I've made the note. This is the most 90s movie I've ever seen. And
it didn't even come out in the 90s.
No, I know.
2002.
But it is the most 90s film I've ever seen. It was a few years behind the curve, but I mean, I think that reality TV is part of that. The whole, oh look, we're filming stuff on cameras like the Blair Witch Project. But like,
the thing is, I think they've missed the point of the found footage.
Yeah,
film. What makes
completely.
found footage scary.
Completely. It's like shitty low res footage that they can't even like do a scene in. They just cut to occasionally.
It's like if you're behind the camera, you're viewing what they're viewing as it's in live action. But watching someone watch on a laptop...
For people who haven't seen it, this one is... The premise is basically reality TV shows being set up where some kids have to like spend the night in the house that Mike Myers used to live in or something, and they're going to set up a load of spooky stuff to freak them out.
And then they go in the bedroom, it's like a circle bed that revolves. And it's groovy, baby.
Watching him kill people via a webcam on a laptop screen.
Yeah. And there's debate about if it's real or if it's staged.
Yeah, what was the point of that? The other character that we have who's watching them, he's at a party and he's watching them, the whole party starts watching them.
Because he's able to text one of them to help them. That's the...
Yeah.
The
that felt like a completely pointless...
It felt like a good idea that was very wasted.
Yeah, after watching the last 7 films or whatever, it was at least they're doing something a bit different.
That's exactly how I felt.
I get what you're saying.
What's the deal with that Peeping Tom rip-off scene where they have a sharpened
I was going to call it a homage,
inexplicably.
but it's like, no, that's just a straight-up rip-off of what they do in that.
Yeah, inexplicably the cameraman's got a really sharp tripod, and then Mike Myers picks it up and stabs him with it whilst filming him.
That's what I think. I thought, I bet he stabbed someone in a shower later. That's going to come up next in the next scene. I thought he was going to do like a Scream-esque horror
run
homage
through all
for every film.
all the history of horror with Mike
Yeah,
Myers.
just do them all. Groovy, baby. Every time you say. Now, the other thing I noticed in this film, which I think has dated particularly badly, a lot of sexual harassment. Were you all right with that?
I mean, it was there, wasn't it?
But there's so much of it in this and it's just sort of painted as normal hijinks. And the most annoying thing is that one of the women who's just getting harassed by this guy and she just tells him to piss off, eventually sort of goes, oh, come on then, let's shag. And they have a quick to do in the basement or whatever.
Well, it was produced by a Weinstein, wasn't it?
I think it's just really bad writing in general.
Yeah.
I think it's written by someone who's never spoken to, anyone under the age of 20, or, anyone who's...
Not
tried to
even when
flirt
they
with another
themselves
person.
were under the age of
Yeah.
20.
Just-
They only spoke to adults when they were a kid.
And then the fantasy element of the film is when they go along with it, and then you would get laid. That's the bit that never happened.
Yeah, I just found it sort of like the deaths wasn't even that inventive, like a lot of a lot of these films.
I thought they were more inventive than most of the franchise.
With these Halloween films, they always try to have them a bit sort of. They're not that realistic that it would happen in that sense, but yeah, it's garbage.
So, anything else on that film? We give ratings.
It's a 4 out of 10 from me. If we are.
Yeah, I give it a 4 as well, actually, which is, I think my sort of top sequel ranking.
Yeah, it's definitely my favourite of the sequels. I'll die on that hill.
I'd give it a 2 out of 10, to be honest.
Well, here's something to round this off. I just looked at Busta Rhymes, and apparently his real name is Trevor. So let's just leave it there.
But yeah, there is, of course, another one coming out. Halloween 9, I guess, now. Just called
Yes.
Halloween.
Halloween H40. The most interesting thing about this is the people behind it.
Well, exactly. That's why I kind of am interested in this one.
David Gordon Green and Danny McBride.
Yeah.
The people who brought you things like Your Highness.
Thank you, wise wizard. Not so fast. First, you must answer a riddle. What journey be long and twisted and sensitive at hand? To what end must man go to discover the depths of his ecstasy? Think hard, strong warriors. Fuck, I know this.
I've got it. You want us to twist what is long with our sensitive hands.
He wants us to jerk him off.
I mean, David Gordon Green is, a serious director when he wants to be. He made a film called Joe that was very well received. I thought it was shite, but Eastbound and Down's good.
It does make me hopeful that they might have a sense of humour about it.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
think?
this is what I've heard. They said they were going to take it deadly seriously and do it justice and not make it a comedy, but then the reviews I've glanced at suggest that was bullshit and they couldn't help themselves from making jokes because they're just inherently funny people, I guess, which makes sense if it comes naturally to what you're doing. Then,
we're in the era though of the Marvel films, which Marvel do it well because they've always established it, but I don't know if you've like The Last Jedi and stuff, it's getting popular now to put Marvel type humor into films, and I think there's a sort of
there's a real backlash against it. I personally, I don't have a problem
by
at
me,
all.
particularly.
I quite enjoy it, but it's one of the reasons everyone hates the new Predator film is that it's got allegedly Marvel style humor in it. I don't know if I'd agree with that personally, but it certainly has a sense of humor about itself. I mean, not to get too ahead of ourselves with future Predator talk as well, but I feel like those reviews completely miss that the first film also had a very real sense of humor about itself.
Yeah, self-awareness.
But yeah, like with Halloween, it's been such a po-faced, humorless affair throughout the franchise.
That's probably a good thing.
It would be really kind of. I could see that being really jarring and not something you want, having a sense of humor in the.
They're ignoring the sequels and making a Halloween 2, essentially, is what they're trying to make, but also ignoring what happens at the end of Halloween originally.
Oh, really?
That's what it seems to suggest here.
Yeah, they're not even even in the trailer they say, isn't Michael Myers' sister? It's like, oh no, that's something that made up, which I find really bizarre because I could easily buy the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis or Laurie Strode is taking the events after what happened at Halloween 2. The fact that they're ignoring Halloween 2 as well is a bit weird.
I mean, I don't know. I think if you're gonna retcon and ignore a load of sequels, I would generally rather you ignore all of the sequels and just go back to the first film, because otherwise it just confuses me a bit. So I'm all right with if they have to.
That's
do
what I'm
it.
just gonna have to. Yeah, that's what I'm just gonna see it as now.
And I know Saul will be excited that Judy Greer's in it.
I'm very excited about Judy Greer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, the new one, it's been reviewed. It's been seen at Toronto, I think. Toronto International Film Festival, they screened it. And it's got 85% on Rotten Tomatoes at the minute. With that's with 50+ reviews. So I think it probably is quite good. But I mean, but there really is nowhere to go with the series if you just carry on down that same route, I would have thought.
He'd have to show up on a mobility scooter or just made up of just different plastic prosthetics and stuff because he's been shot twice or shot multiple times.
This seems like a good segue to get into pitching our own ideas for a Halloween. Yeah. Should we? I mean, what would we do? Old man Myers.
Well, he'd only be 60?
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be too obvious about this, but how old is Mike Myers? Because I think he could.
When did it come out? 79, the first film. So he would have been like a young man. He's probably in his 60s, isn't he? He must be at least in his 60s.
No, he's 60. He was born in 58.
The original actor, Nick Castle, strange fact, he directed The Last Starfighter. I don't know if people knew that. Nick Castle, the original actor, he's returning for this film. So
is he?
If you find out his age, yeah. Or he'll at least in certain parts, obviously they would have had stunt doubles here and there. But I think they wanted to be so authentic to the original movements that he brought to it that I could be wrong now.
He's 71, Nick Castle, according to the internet.
There you are. So we know how old Michael Myers is then.
Well, that's not Michael Myers. Michael Myers was born in 1958. That's what they say in the film. But that worries me that they're doing stuff like that. That's like getting Kenny Baker in to play R2-D2. It's just like there's no point, is there? It's just.
Do you know? I'm going totally off topic. But wouldn't it be great if someone made a film about Kenny Baker and C-3PO's working relationship because they hated each other? Someone's going to do that one day. It's going to.
Oh man, you know what? That is going to be an Oscar bait film in about 20 years. The Anthony and Kenny starring.
It stars Peter Dinklage and Michael Cera.
That's what's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be some sort of. No, Benedict Cumberbatch, and then.
Cumbles will probably have an Oscar by then. It's going to be two people who haven't won an Oscar yet, desperately vying for...
I mean, it's going to be Peter Dinklage. I mean, let's not mess about with that one.
Peter Dinklage and...
What about the guy who plays all the thin people in Guillermo del Toro's
Doug Jones, yes. That is perfect casting.
No, I reckon it'll be I could see it being Simon Pegg. Trying to become a credible actor.
And Nick Frost. Nick Frost has already played a dwarf in the Snow White and the Huntsman.
In the role of a lifetime.
I don't mean Simon Pegg as... Oh, wait, yeah. No, come on. Couldn't you see Simon Pegg as Anthony Daniels getting really serious about it? Because he's a big Star Wars guy. I think he's got it in him that he'd like to become a credible actor and win an Oscar one day, even though...
Yeah.
That's the sort of passion project I could see him really getting into, doing the voice.
Yeah.
I genuinely, Simon Pegg, Peter Dinklage, and Anthony and Kenny. A heartwarming tale about the behind-the-scenes drama of the Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, a Star Wars story.
The listeners of this podcast who have come to hear about Halloween are going to be seriously pissed.
That's a good Oscar bait Star Wars film we've pitched there. I'm pleased with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's move back swiftly to Halloween. Home Alone at Halloween, is that what we're doing? With
can I say,
Joe Pesci as Michael Myers.
Can I tell you what my pitch is?
Yeah, go.
My pitch is Michael Myers is he's getting on a bit now. He's 71.
Yeah.
He gets up and he checks his calendar and he's like, "Oh right, yeah, it's Halloween." So he goes out and he's driving about and he crashes into a camp. And then, what happens is the nurse comes in and she checks the calendar and it's like, well, where the fuck is Michael gone? Like it's not Halloween. And then what's happened is that he's seen a 13 and he thought it was a 31, and
he was looking at it in the mirror.
Yeah, and then then what happens is like he's on Camp Crystal Lake, and then Jason shows up, and then like the family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're having a little road trip, so they show up as well. Then Michael Myers he decides to he decides to have a little nap.
He's gonna go have a little nap.
Comes into his dreams, and then like someone's messing about with a Necronomicon, and then like everyone just gets, all these camp counselors get possessed by like deadites. But then someone reads a passage from the Necronomicon wrong, and then Chucky comes.
I was going to say, where's Chucky? We've got to get him in there.
And then they all kill each other, and they all end up in hell. And then like Pinhead from the Hellraiser film comes, and then everyone will be happy. Then the horror film fans will be happy. That's happened. We've had that horror film universe. You know, it's ticked all the boxes.
Well, Leprechaun.
Yeah, Leprechaun's in there. Who else could we crowbar into this
Jigsaw
ultimate horror film?
He's
in hell now because he's dead, and he's sort of like, I want to play a game, and they've all got to compete in hell.
Oh man, I would fucking love that. Oh my god, if Saw 9 was just like a load of famous horror movie slashers wake up in a trap room, and they have to work. Chucky from Child's Play has to work together with Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger, played by the original actors as well, to get their way out of oh my god, that would be amazing. That'd be so good.
But, what my original pitch was, believe it or not, that was the joke on. Was that it's annoyed me now because there's a film actually coming out which is going to do this. I thought it'd be funny if like Michael Myers goes to like one of them Halloween Horror Nights places, like in Universal Studios, where they really go all out, and nobody realizes he's a killer. Like, so he's let loose on a Halloween theme park. It's a new setting, at least. It's a theme park, and people are trying to solve what's going on. It's chaotic, basically. There's like some new security guard working on the theme park. It's his first night.
Can
there.
the security guard be played by a hip R&B star?
Oh yeah, it's going to be like
Pharrell Williams,
little fuckwit or something like that. You know,
is that what they're called?
Yeah, he's got rainbow dreadlocks and tattoos on his face, and he mumbles and stuff. That'll be him. He'll be the.
Can't we just get Donald Glover and?
I was going to say, get Childish Gambino's the big rapper these days, but he's too credible.
Yeah,
he's a bit too. Good.
Just someone flavour of the month at least.
Well, Eminem's just made a comeback and is relevant for the next like few weeks, and then won't be again. I want to see Kanye West but Kanye West as himself going up against Mike Myers. What about if we're doing a crossover? You know, they did that film that was like Rise of the Guardians or something, and it was like the Easter Bunny and
no, I know what you mean, but the Father
Christmas, the Easter Bunny, all these like holiday heroes hanging out. It's them, but they recruit Mike Myers for Halloween, and then he like just starts killing them. So it's a slasher film.
Because they think he's like a cuddly Halloween mascot, and they don't realise.
Yeah, it's a slasher film set on the North Pole in Santa's workshop, and he's going around killing everyone who's there for Christmas.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great though if they just had Halloween Michael Myers on Christmas? I've always loved the Christmas aesthetic.
Yeah, there's not really a good Christmas slasher film yet, even though they've tried many times. Oh yeah, Black Christmas.
Yeah.
I forgot about Black Christmas.
But it's Michael Myers with the mask and everything, but he's just put on a fake beard and like a red suit. And it's just...
All right, well, what I meant to say is they haven't really cracked the Father Christmas slasher film yet, even though they've tried many, many, many times to do an evil Santa thing. So this could be
Tales
it.
of the Crypt episode, that was pretty good, by Robert Zemeckis. Did you ever see that one?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah. That's as close as they've come to getting it right, I'd say.
And it's only because it's in a 40-minute format, it works anyway. What does he do in between this different seasons? Is he just staring at a wall? Or does he just like...
Yeah, the Michael Myers holiday special. We see him with his family. He's got B. Arthur.
They've already made that, Alan. It's called Shrek the Halls.
Why are you killing everybody, Shrek?
Why is Saul gone quiet with his Eddie Murphy impressions? It's almost like he's embarrassed.
I don't want to like diminish it, but I don't want to overdo it.
Yeah,
it's in moderation.
It's like breaking a dam.
It's in moderation. You only you know.
If there's one thing Saul knows about, it's moderation. Anyway, shall we pack up?
I've had a great time though. But in all honesty though, thank you. It's been my birthday today. It's kind of sad that none of you have wished me.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been a great way to spend my little my 31st birthday.
Well, everyone, all the listeners, go and wish Scott a happy birthday. Now that you've listened to this,
but make sure you say from 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
No, I've had a great time. Thank you. It's been.
Oh, thank you for joining us. It's been good.
Yeah,
thank you for watching those films.
Yeah. Bomb, bomb, bomb. Thanks for listening this week. As ever, please do go and rate and review us on iTunes if you haven't already. We are now putting our schedule together for some future months and thinking about including some more listener request episodes. So if you would like to request an episode topic from us, we will be accepting those in the forms of iTunes reviews. What a scam. But no, seriously, if you want us to cover a film, or potentially even a series of films, like our seasons, where we do a trilogy of episodes, covering a director or something like that, do go and let us know on iTunes. Rate and review us there, because we're trying to figure out what we're going to do in, well, I mean, it won't be till probably 2019 at this point, but, you know, plan ahead. As ever, go and find us on our social media. Facebook.com/Diminishing Returns Podcast is a good place to start. Alan has been posting lots of photographs of Calvin over the last couple of weeks. Most recently, Alan has posted up a photograph of Calvin from, I believe, a Halloween party at uni, actually, where he was dressed up as James Bond, but he looks about 12 years old. So, you know, that's the sort of gold you're missing out on if you're not checking out our social media on the reg, if you're not following us and all that. Do come back next week as the horror continues here on Diminishing Returns in the lead up to Halloween, the holiday, not the film. We've already done the film. Next week it is, shall I tell you? Yes, I will. We're doing Suspiria, quintessential giallo horror classic Suspiria.